of these, and I think we're making progress. First, is the Trump administration trying to restore better relations with Russia because of fears of nuclear war or so-called loose nukes within Russia? Is it for economic calculations, potential economic benefits, partnerships, investment, and so forth in the future? Or is it something bigger? In other words, support for some sort of new spheres of influence in which Russia is allowed to exert greater sway over its immediate neighbors, including, of course, Ukraine. So that's the first set of questions. Second, how will US military downsizing, or at least lessened commitments to Europe's defense by the Trump administration, how will that impact on Russia's policy towards Europe? Will it tempt Moscow to test Article 5, or just under the radar with Article 5, to test NATO unity, to test America's response? That takes me to the third question, probably the most important. What recommendations would our panelists offer the US administration? Whether they would listen or not, of course, is another matter. But what would you offer to the administration in dealing with an ambitious Russia that also faces some major internal convulsions? I'll come back to that later one a little bit later. So we have four panelists. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. You know them all, but let me just announce them in order. Ian Brzezinski, Atlantic Council. Ambassador Michael Carpenter, former ambassador to the OSCE. Robert Hamilton, Delphi Global Research Center, our partner in this conference. And of course, Ambassador Daniel Fried, former US ambassador to Poland, and just back from Poland as well. So let's start with the first question, actually, and I'll start with Ian. Does Trump have a Russia strategy, or just sort of short-term objectives?
Thanks, Janusz. Let me thank you and Margarita for including this in this event, and Bob, thank you. I'm not sure what Trump's strategy for Russia is.
The micro is not on.
Not on? How's that?
Yep.
There we go. I mean, as an outsider looking in, it strikes me he's kind of most interested in a possible reset to achieve what previous administrations had naively pursued but not achieved. And you see that in his hesitancy to support the Ukraine robustly. You see that in language coming from his officials about possible deals and partnership with Russia. To me, it's a troubling signal. I don't know what motivates it. Perhaps it could be what I think is a genuine fear of nuclear war. He's very visceral, very emotional when he talks about that. It could be he's trying to achieve something that his predecessors hasn't achieved. He may be mesmerized by quote-unquote business deals, some of which may be useful to his family. And I think he actually believes that business deals are useful to his family, or useful to the country. You see that on his family's engagement on perhaps reanimating Nord Stream, so that the United States and Russia can jointly supply energy to Europe, which to me is a crazy thought. And it may be kind of driven by a desire to be associated with strong leaders, particularly in the context of the fact that Trump doesn't really look at Europe as a region of strong leaders and strong nations. So that's what I think is driving Trump. But let me talk, give me one more minute. I think an important point is, when was the last time the United States actually had a Russia strategy? I don't mean to hit Mike, but did the Biden administration have a Russia strategy? I'm pretty convinced the Trump administration didn't have a Russia strategy. I'm pretty convinced the Obama administration didn't have a Russia strategy. The last time I can think that last time I've been exposed to a strategy towards that region was quite literally during the Cold War, when I was working in the NSC in the Reagan administration, and we actually had a document that was the Soviet Union strategy. That's a real concern. Now you may say maybe you don't want Trump to have a strategy because that makes him more effectively pursue his goals. But when you don't have a strategy, you're ceding to your adversary the initiative. You're reactive. You're inherently reactive. You're inherently on the defensive. And we have faced systemic, sustained, escalating aggression from Russia ever since 2008. It's geographically expanded in its scope. It's expanded in scope in terms of operations. Think invasion of Ukraine, invasion of Georgia. Think of assassination, sabotage, information warfare, the assassination. The list goes on. And yet we don't have a strategy. And let me just close by saying, if you're going to have a strategy, what would be the objectives that you would pursue in that strategy? And I would say there would be 4 that would define it. 1, defeat Russia and Ukraine. That's your first and most urgent objective of the coherent Russia strategy. Because if you don't, and by don't I mean if you allow this war to progress, you're increasing the likelihood of wider war in Europe, and you're likely encouraging a war elsewhere around the world. And you certainly, if you fail in that regard, won't have stability in Europe, and the United States will be less able to address challenges elsewhere around the world. Defeat Ukraine is 1. 2, deter Russia against our allies and our partners. That's just as nuclear deterrence and conventional deterrence. It's also deterring hybrid warfare. 3rd, contain Russian influence. Limit its ability to coerce and subjugate, particularly its neighbors. Think of the non-NATO states of Europe, Central Asia, and even beyond. And then 4th is to diminish Russia's ability and will to pursue Putin's revanchist ambitions. So for me, it's defeat, deter, contain, degrade. And that last one, degrade, how do you do that? Well, that's real economic sanctions to shut down his war machine, to reduce his influence abroad, to weaken political stability in that state, and it also means actually ramping up support to those in Russia who oppose the war against Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine, and who oppose the autocracy of the Putin regime. Those are the elements of a coherent strategy, and just the last point is we have the overmatching power to execute this effectively. All we need to do is leverage our political will.